Good morning. I'm going to give it another minute and start at 11 o'clock sharp. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? Today is Monday, September 12th, 2022. And today actually happens to be my departed father's birthday. And I just been thinking about him a lot this morning. So I'm bringing him into the space of our sacred circle of connection, of creation this morning. And today I am at headquarters in Lambertville, New Jersey. I am working with heroic public speaking as a teaching fellow. And so what you're seeing here is one of the rehearsal rooms. And if you have never heard of heroic public speaking, I invite you to look them up at heroicpublicspeaking.com. They are a wonderful company that really helps people to become more proficient at public speaking and to really learn how to become more of a performer, someone who embodies their speech, as opposed to just being a sort of talking head on stage. And so I work with them as a fellow teacher. I support them in their program and I love doing it. It's really a wonderful experience for me to be with so many amazing people, interesting people. It's amazing how when we surround ourselves with incredible people, what happens to us. I'm just so excited to be here and to be part of this community. There are people here who are, airline pilots, Marines. We have some people who are IT experts. There are coaches. There are Harvard professors. There are Hall of Fame music writers and performers, just a gamut of truly extraordinary people. And if you haven't heard me say this yet, it's so important to surround ourselves with people who inspire us, people who do different things than we do, to really move outside of this immediate space of what our life is, to really take the time to put yourselves, and now we're sort of kind of out of COVID, or certainly moving our way there. And so to put yourself back, to seek out opportunities around you where you get to connect with different people from different walks of life. And this is very pertinent to the conversation I would like to share with you today, which is to navigate difficult conversations, how to navigate difficult conversations, oftentimes with difficult people, mindfully and skillfully. And when I find myself in this type of environment and I am acting as a teaching fellow, I'm both here as a supporter, as a teacher, and as a student, always beginner's mind first, to really step into the seat of the student, which I always love because I'm constantly learning. There is something that happens, of course, to my capacity to improve my speaking skills, because I'm in an environment of people who are doing the same thing. Therefore, I am surrounding myself with people who are practicing to go towards mastery. None of us are masters yet, I would say. Well, maybe Michael and Amy. Yes, they are the teachers, Michael and Amy Port. A beautiful, beautiful couple, amazing masters at what they do, for sure. And so to be in a space like this uplifts me, but it also uplifts all of us to rise, to leverage our level of consciousness. And it's very helpful because when you have to speak to people one-on-one, you do have to embody that space. You know, it's not always comfortable to be in groups or to be in learning environments. There is anxiety. We can get nervous. And yet, when we are in these environments and we push ourselves a little bit to be in uncomfortable situations, this is where there's an opportunity to learn how to become better communicators. I hope this is making sense. Welcome and good morning. If you're here, you might want to say hello in the chat. Just let me know who you are. And I love that you're here with me. So without further ado, I would love to move into this conversation around how to navigate these difficult conversations. Thanks for the live, Sabi and Vanessa. Hello, good morning, Vanessa. So good to have you here. Good morning, Sabi. Thank you for being here. Whoever else shows up, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself. If you didn't join in through StreamYard, I can't see your name in the comments. So if you can say hi, that's really helpful to me to know who's here. And so moving into how to have difficult conversations, how to navigate difficult conversations from a space of mindful awareness, from a space of skillful mindful awareness. And so the first thing that I want to put out there is I've been having conversations with some of you over the past couple of weeks, both clients and then extended members around me. And I do want to start with one caveat, which is that sometimes you want to have a mindful, skillful communication with someone, but the other person is just not there. The other person is not receiving it. The other person does not have the mindset to communicate mindfully. The other person may not have the tools or the experience. And so what can happen is that you get confronted. You're in a seat. You're confronted with another person who can't hear it, who doesn't have the tools, and whose position is consistently one of defense, one of I'm right, you're wrong, one of I need to prove my point and I need you to just step off because I'm going to bulldoze over you. My conversation, my opinion, my pain is really what's happening. When people act from a space of defense, it's really pain. And so what they do is they bulldoze over you. And there's no space to navigate mindfully, skillfully. Or there is seemingly no space to navigate mindfully, skillfully. There's always an opportunity to communicate from a mindful perspective. Now, one of the examples that I want to talk about is a very difficult example because it's the relationship of two people who are in this unit because they have either some children involved or there's some sort of relationship where they can't break off from one another because there's a second or third party attached to that center. It can also be in working with a very difficult boss where you don't want to leave your job, you have a good job, you like your job, you like your colleagues, and the boss is very difficult to work with. If you're in one of those situations where, especially if you're in a marriage or in a relationship where there's a child connected to the couple, but you're not with that person anymore, you're separated, you're divorced, you're in different places, and yet there's a child in the center of it, and you have to be together to be part of that child's life. That can be really, really tough. So I want to address this first because sometimes it might feel like there's nowhere to go. It might feel like no matter how hard you try to communicate from a place of center and honestly from common sense, right? We would think that common sense would be more common, and it's frequently not more common. People struggle because they have their own hurt and pain inside of them. And so, the thing that I want to share about this is if you are in that exchange, if you're confronted with someone who doesn't have the skills, who doesn't know how, who's coming from a blame shame perspective, and still you have to communicate with them, they are part of your family, they are part of the exchange. It's so important for you to continuously practice these skills because even with people who are that difficult to connect with, to communicate with, there is still a way for you to position yourself in a win-win situation. How do you do it? The first thing is you want to go behind that person's eyes. And when I say that, what I mean is you want to go behind them, look from their perspective. If you can feel and understand that they are in pain, that they are afraid, and that's always the case. That is always the case. When people come across as very harsh and defensive and intense, just like I'm doing right now, when they give you no space to exchange, they are in pain. Their bodies are in pain. I really want you to hear this because if you can leverage yourself, your sense of presence, and understand that another person is in pain, it's going to shift how you relate to them. Now, yes, there's always a possibility for compassion. There's always a possibility for empathy. And at the same time, I would say there is a measure of compassion and empathy. There is a measure. It's like you have a measuring cup when you cook. When you bake a cake, you have to measure, the eggs or the flour. It's the same thing when you come in that space because you don't want to be overly empathic or compassionate, because if that happens, then you might end up being in a position of vulnerability. You might be the one who ends up getting hurt because you're too open to the person who they are completely closed. They don't have the skills to communicate on that level. So if you can go behind their eyes, if you can stand behind them and see that they are in pain, there's a few things that become rather obvious in how to use mindfulness and skillful means to communicate. And the first thing is you're going to shorten the amount of conversation that you're going to have with this person. So you have to do your homework, in other words. You want to look specifically at what needs to be shared. You don't want to go into a story. You don't want to apologize. You don't want to give a lot of space for contemplation, not a lot of space for a back and forth. You want to craft what you want to share skillfully so that you can get to the heart of the conversation skillfully. And it may or may not end up the way that you want to, but you have to see this as a process, as a step towards the next level. Now, what happens a lot of the time when we are in those types of exchanges is that we get impatient and we say something like, we say something like, okay, this is going to go this way and it's going to be over after this. I'm going to deal with this and then it's over. And that's not how it works. Usually difficult exchanges and conversations are not over very quickly. They are a process of conversations that need to be had, especially if there are children involved, if there are other colleagues and teammates involved. So there is a real opportunity for you to practice how to speak mindfully, skillfully. It is a skill. It's not something that just shows up one day. And especially because when we are learning to navigate these difficult conversations, we get emotional. And when you get emotional, it's hard to stay centered. When you get emotional, you kind of can lose your patience, lose the logic, lose the language that you want to use to better communicate. So you have to practice mindful, skillful speech. How do you practice? Well, one way that you practice is that you can certainly work with me as your coach. That's one way you can do it. I also have other courses coming up that you can learn from, specifically in the art of mindful communication. So you can go out there and learn more, take some courses, some online courses, very small courses at first. They don't have to be very big courses, just to learn how to use the proper language in those exchanges. But more important than this, you have to practice on a daily basis being honest. Because if you are really honest with yourself right now, you will be able to identify that it's happened, or it happens regularly, that you'll say some little white lies. And what I mean by that is you will soften something, or you'll avoid saying something in order to not hurt someone else, or because you don't want to be in a confrontation. And so what we do is we kind of say little white lies. An omission meaning you don't say what you really want to say, is part of that white lie. So you want to practice in your daily life being honest. And that looks like saying, for example, let's say you're having a conversation with a friend who wants to invite you out, or a sister or a family member or whatnot, and they'll say, oh, let's meet tonight for dinner. I haven't seen you in so long, and this is the third time we said we were going to go out, but we're not, it never happens. Let's really make this happen. And you, on the other end, really don't want to go because you're tired, you don't feel like it. You don't really want to go sit at a restaurant or somewhere with this person, not because you don't like them, just because you have better things to do with your time. How do you navigate your way out of this? Well, my policy is always honesty. And honesty, understand, also can be shared through a mindful approach, through a skillful approach. For example, you can say in this instance, hey, I know that this is the third time we're trying to get together and it hasn't worked out until now. And the truth is, I'm just feeling really tired. It's been, a little bit of a process for me to get my energy back. And I'm just not feeling like I have the energy to go out. And I hope that you'll understand, and I hope that you'll forgive me. It's not for a lack of wanting to see you. It's more because I'm working on preserving my energy. That's something that I'm doing for myself. And that's it. Do you see? You get to the core of the situation. You get to the core of the message, of the issue, of the truth of the issue, without fluff, without lying, without making excuses. And that's how you learn to get better at navigating difficult conversations, is that you take them on every day. Now, there's a varying level of what a difficult conversation might look like to you on a daily basis. Start with the very small conversations. Start with a small conversation with your sister about not putting the toothpaste cap back on, or about leaving the cup in the sink. And just ask mindfully and skillfully, would you mind washing your cup, so that we might maintain some cleanliness, we might maintain some order in the kitchen. Little things. Same thing with your parents. Same thing if you're in a relationship with an ex and your ex is being really difficult about certain situations. To slowly, first of all, take a pause. Take a pause and go behind that person's eyes and consider where they are at. And before you respond, slow down. Slow down. And when you do respond, the practice is to start to share from a place of honesty. And it's hard to do that because we tend to not want to say the truth. We tend to want to avoid the truth and to say a little white lie. So I really want to encourage you to not do that, to really come from a place of sharing honesty. However, to do it in a place that is gentle and kind and direct. We don't want to fluff it up, but you want to say the truth from this place of honesty. It's a real skill to develop honesty. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. Okay, I hope this is making sense. If this makes sense to you, or if you have a question or a comment, I encourage you to put it in the chat. Have a little bit of a communication with me. Let me know if this is resonating with you, if it's not resonating. And I'm going to go to, let's see, I have four, let's see, do I have four? I have about 3 main points that I want to offer you. And this is from an article that I read some time ago from the meditation and Buddhist teacher Oren J. Sofer. And I really like him. He's a really lovely teacher. And the first thing that he talks about in one of his articles that I really have integrated. Hello, hey, Chelsea, welcome, welcome. It makes sense. Okay, great. So here are 3 simple ways for you to start navigating these difficult conversations. So the first thing that I was sharing is, in order to practice navigating how to have difficult conversations, you have to practice. You have to practice on a daily basis. You have to practice with your family environment. You have to practice with your lover, with your partner, with your ex, with people in your life that you're still communicating with that are difficult, and they are actually the perfect people for you to practice with. Because here in this training, I am inviting you to develop your relationship with honesty so that you're not integrating these little white lies about how you're feeling. But how do you share from a place of honesty that is mindful and skillful so as to not bring up or present more pain in the situation? It is a real skillful mean. And I'm inviting you to practice that through really look inside of yourself and explore where you might tap into how could I be more honest. And the other thing is, as you practice this honesty bit, is don't look for an immediate resolution. Understand that having difficult conversations with difficult people may take some time. And if you feel like you're about to blow up, like you've had enough, you're going to lose it, and you feel like you're going to blow up, pause before you get into another confrontation with the person. Because sometimes we get so angry and we so want something to happen quickly, and believe me, I've been there, that we say the wrong thing, we take an action that is too precipitated without first taking a step back and calming ourselves. So the first piece was really practice being honest. The second piece is slow down. Don't make harsh, immediate decisions, because when we make harsh decisions, you are in a state of reactivity. You're not thinking it through. And this is why it's so important to have this type of circle of creation, so that you can come here, listen, share your insight, comment, and then try to work something out. So if you're, hey, Gérald, Christian, hello, welcome. Bonjour, bonjour. My sister and brother, my sister-in-law and brother are here. So great to have you. I was just talking about two of the most important things to practice when you are moving into having difficult conversations or navigating difficult conversations is to practice being honest, to not lie, and to not lie, to be honest, but from a place of gentleness, to not be rough about it. Because when we're off center, when we have to deal or navigate with difficult people, a lot of the time when there are difficult conversations is because somewhere along the way we have been hurt. Someone has lied to us, someone has said something hurtful, someone has been unreliable. And when we hold on to that, then it becomes more and more difficult to even want to have a conversation with someone else. And so this piece about honesty is really one that needs to be practiced in your closer environment, in your closer milieu, so that you might start to develop this relationship with navigating difficult conversations with difficult people. Sometimes you're not going to have to stay in those relationships. You're going to be able to walk away. But a lot of the time, I'm talking about these internal conflicts that we have with our families, with our brothers and sisters, with our ex-partners, with our husbands or wives that are separated or getting a divorce, and there's a child in the middle. How do you communicate? How do you get to come to a place of agreement? And sometimes that can be excessively difficult, which is why it is so important to take a pause. We have to pause and pull our proverbial selves, our shit together. Because if you're just in a state of reactivity from what has occurred from the past, you're only adding fuel to the fire instead of going into a more strategic, a skillful, a mindful approach towards a resolution. The other thing is, with difficult conversations, with difficult people, is that they're not always going to be able to receive what we want to share. And so it's really important to remember that it is a process. Do not look for a resolution or an answer immediately. It is a process. And the better you get at calming down, at being more centered, at having your feet grounded, and at giving it a little bit space, usually a lot of what starts to happen energetically around the conversation, around the problem, finds its own way into a more peaceful environment. So I don't know if you can hear, there's a lot of noise because I am actually I'm actually at a studio. Well, you can see this is a rehearsal studio where I'm teaching over the next 3 days. I'm with this organization called Heroic Public Speaking. And so I'm teaching and presenting and, of course, doing my Facebook Live in between. So if you're hearing noise in the background, there's a little bit of a break going on. So I just wanted to let you know what was happening. Okay, so back on track. Difficult conversations, right? With those difficult people who you don't like, you have a bad relationship with, you don't want them in your life, but they're in your life. You have to deal with them. You are in charge. You are the master of your own center. You have to pull yourself together and take a step back so that you can see the wider horizon of what's possible. Because some of these relationships are super, super important in actually promoting some sort of resolution for a better future. So we don't want to get more entangled. We try to stay away from having to involve, lawyers or legal, official affairs into these dynamics. It's not always possible, but that's what we want to focus on doing, to try to take a step back, take a breath, slow down, and realize that all types of difficult conversations are caused from us having pain, feeling I mean, there's a variety, but let me share a few with you. So it comes from us feeling as if we have been treated unfairly, that we have been betrayed, that we have been disregarded, disrespected. So these difficult conversations are really coming from a place of hurt, which is why I'm inviting you to slow down and to process your own opinions, to leverage yourself to a higher level of consciousness so that you might be able to move through it with more honesty, but also with more ease, more calmness. Because if you get into these conversations and you're already charged up and you already hate the other person, you're going nowhere fast. And this is where it gets complicated, because you lose your rationale. You lose the possibility of strategically solving a solution because you get too emotional, right? If we're too emotional, we're too angry, we just basically want to annihilate. We want to destroy the other person. We want them to disappear because they're bad people. We have to deal with bad people too in life. We have to handle those situations with more finesse, to really take a step and look at yourself first. Look at yourself first. What outcome do you want to get from this conversation? What is the ideal outcome? And what is the best way for you to move forward? And never forget that there is always another possibility. Don't give up on the possibility of a brighter future or a better conversation or a better resolution because the other person is a bad person. You can't focus on the other person. You got to focus on you. You got to focus on what's your desired outcome and what is the best, most mindful and skillful way to get there in as much ease as possible. When we are supercharged with emotion, it's very, very difficult to be able to get to that point. So this is why everything that I do, that I'm teaching, that I'm sharing is based around you. Leverage yourself, leverage your communication skills, learn to have a wider vision of what's possible in this situation. I'll give you another example. I had a client recently. Chelsea has a question. I'm curious as to how you might proceed with a person that doesn't necessarily provide much response and tends to simply brush things under the rug. And the lack of resolution. Well, so if you have someone who's not responding, Chelsea, thank you for your question, by the way. If you have someone that's not responding, then we have to really look at the tactic of less is more. How can we minimize the exchange with the other person in a way that will get us to some sort of resolution? And Chelsea, part of that resolution might be for us to step off. Sometimes we simply have to get out of the way. Sometimes, many times, there is no resolution. This is why I keep going back to you. The resolution might be no resolution. The resolution might be for you to get out of the scene, because you can't keep harping with someone about something if the other person, as you say, tends to brush things under the rug. Oh, no, it doesn't matter, or it's okay, or we'll talk about that later, or tends to avoid. You can see in their reaction that they are also stuck in that frozen part. They can't connect to themselves. They are disembodied, and so therefore will tend to not want to deal with things. So that's one thing, brushing things under the rug. The other way that people show up in our lives that are disconnected, disembodied from themselves, is that they are wanting to cause you trouble. They want something from you. They're asking for something from you all the time. Do you see that in both examples, no matter what you do or say, will not come to a resolution, or perhaps not the one that you want. So you are the ones who need to step off and come to a better resolution for you. And that can be a process. But do you see how it keeps coming back to you? We have to have the wherewithal to put ourselves first in those difficult conversations, because sometimes it's just not going to reach the other person because there's too much pain, because there's too much that they're processing, and they don't know, they don't have the tools. And for a lot of people, they don't want the tools. Not everybody wants to be on these chats with us every Monday, because people simply do not want to resolve their issues. And furthermore, they want to blame you for their condition. This is when we realize that people are in their victim mode. Do you know what I mean by that, you guys? If you could write in the chat, do you know what I mean when I say victim mode? You have people in your lives that are victims. Poor me, this is not working, I got fired, I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm not blaming, shaming those people, but it's really important for us to be able to identify that, because if a person is in their victim, there's nothing you can do. They have to now choose and decide to get embodied in their bodies, in their lives, and look at what's occurred for them. And this is very difficult, because a lot of the time we have a lot of woven relationships with these people. It's not like you can just brush them off. It hurts our hearts that some people are stuck in their victim mode. Yes, I think about my loving dad, who is often in the victim mode. Yeah. So, your dad, your partner, your ex, your spouse right now, your sister, someone might be in their victim mode. Now, the victim mode is someone who consistently feels sorry for themselves and cannot get out. I have a victim mode. You have a victim mode. Sometimes my victim mode will come on and I'll say, oh man, I should be further along, or I wish I was more successful, or whatever my victim mode comes up as. Well, there are moments of victim modes, and that's okay. We're human. We can have moments of victim mode. But when you're stuck in the victim, and the tendency is that your language is around what's not working, what you've lost, the fact that you might have decided or been diagnosed as clinically depressed. Depression is a whole other conversation that I believe is a state of mind that is easily rectifiable, or if not easily, certainly rectifiable through movement, through moving out into the world, from getting care into moving into action, because that's how we heal in life. Our bodies are made to move. I'm not talking about taking an aerobics class. It's a different type of movement. Victims will tend to find themselves depressed. Poor me, I've lost everything. And what happens when people are in this victim mode is they'll start to blame it on another person. They'll put it on you. They'll put the blame on you. And furthermore, they will be indignant about it and can request that you have to do something for them, or worse, they'll start to blame you for being how you are, that you're the one who's inefficient, that you're the one who doesn't understand, that you're the one who is lacking. You have to be really careful, because when we are in victim mode, for some people, there's also a component of narcissism that tends to arise. It's all about me, myself, and I. And you'll find that with people. A lot of people who go into their victim mode become more narcissistic, and everything revolves around them. We have to pay attention to them. We have to give them everything that they're asking for. The problem is that that's literally not how relationships work. And that is also not how the world works. And you know this is true. I don't have to give you too many examples about narcissism. As soon as someone becomes more and more narcissistic, they go into themselves and they become more and more difficult to deal with, and the conversations become more and more difficult to handle. So what do? We have to make a decision. Remember, let's go back to the beginning, to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest and to say the real things. To say them mindfully, skillfully, not abruptly or harshly. This is so important because in our culture, a lot of us were not told, we're not taught how to be gentle. We tend to be harsh. We tend to have a little bit of a tone of condescension, even though we love the person and we want to help them. If you're honest right now, you might have noticed that about you. I certainly have noticed that about myself. But you see, that's the foundational, that's the baseline. If you're not honest with you about how you are in communication, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to raise your level of consciousness and to become a better communicator by just focusing on what the other person is doing wrong. Does that make sense? You can't focus on the other person. You got to focus on you. So let's go into an example. This week, I had a client who was sharing with me that one of her longtime friends wanted to do these trading. She wanted to do a trade. You know, one did one type of work for another type of work. And this person wanted to have a trade. And so what happened was that my client said, well, you know, I'm really a professional at what I do, and she's practicing something that she's doing. So she wants to have a trade, but it seemed unfair to her. And she didn't quite know how to tell her that it seemed unfair to her. And she didn't quite know how to express that she didn't want to have a trade. And this was someone that she's known for a long time. She's known for many, many years. So here's what I shared with her. Essentially, is just to be honest. And the truth of the matter is that if you have the time and if there's a benefit for you to be in a trade type of relationship like that with someone, then you're going to find the time to do it because there's a benefit for you. If there's no benefit for you, you don't want to find the time to do it. So essentially, what I invited her to consider was to simply say the truth, mindfully, gently, softly. And here's what it sounded like. Thank you for reaching out to me to consider me to have a trade. The truth is, right now, I'm finding myself not having enough time as I build my own practice in addition to my full-time job. So as much as I'd like to have a trade and support you in your work, I just don't have the time for it right now. And I hope you can understand. And maybe there's another more creative way that we can think about supporting one another in the future. Does that make sense? So the idea is not to lie, it's just to soften the way that we communicate what we want to see happen and be a little bit more mindful about it. This is the skillful part of it, is when you can share information from a place that is gentler. Even if the other person is not gentle, you don't have to be like that other person. But it does require for you to work on yourself significantly. So this is the point about mastery. How am I going to deal with this super difficult situation that I have in my personal life right now without losing it? Without immediately starting to panic and think, oh, I have to go do this. I have to protect myself. First, you have to slow down and then reach out to those around you who you trust. Have the hard conversations. Here's the other thing. If you don't have people that you trust in your life, if you don't have good friends or family members that can support you and give you honest feedback, go out and get them. You have to find people in your life that you trust. You have to find people in your life that can give you honest feedback about how you're being in life. Because if you don't have any of those people, it's going to be very hard for you to gauge how you come across. And sometimes that feedback can be a little bit challenging to hear, which is why you want to practice being mindful in how you give feedback. Because at the end of the day, you love that person. So if I ask, for example, my sister-in-law and my brother on the call right now, right? So if I wanted to have some honest feedback about something, I would feel very comfortable asking them for feedback because I feel like they would tell me the truth. And I feel like they would tell me the truth in a loving way because they love me. And maybe some of what they say as their truth might not be something I want to hear, but that's the whole point of growing ourselves. That's the whole point of being able to have these exchanges and say, honey, part of what I'm seeing is this. Part of what I think could help is that. You notice my language? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm inviting you into an exchange, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm inviting you into an exchange so that you might find something useful, something that you can take with you from this conversation, so that if you are dealing with a difficult situation in your life, you have to be able to leverage yourself, reach out to people that you know, trust, and love, who can give you honest feedback, and you have to be able to take the feedback. If you can't take feedback, then we're not leveraging ourselves. And that's what's so important about communication. Most people don't have that baseline for communication. They get upset, they get offended. Oh my God, I'm so offended by what you said. I got to tell you the truth. Being offended, getting offended about something is the worst possible investment of your energy. What getting offended? There's nothing to get offended about. There's just you receiving information and saying, that doesn't resonate with me, so I'm going to leave that piece to the side. But what am I doing right now? You have to have control over your emotional health, because if everything around you is going to spark a reactivity because you hate this person, because this person betrayed you in the past, because this person doesn't want to move forward with you in the future, my friends, we got to come back to center and say, you know what? I have to deal with this situation right now. I'm going to do the best that I can to deal with it. And then I'm going to walk away. I need some space. I need some time. And sometimes when you want to support someone and help someone who doesn't want to be helped, again, you have to step off, because you cannot change anyone. Oh my God, did I learn that lesson? We cannot change anyone. As much as we want to, as much as we can see their bright future. I have someone in my life right now that I would really love to be able to help. I would love for her to see what I can see for her. I'm older than she is, right? And I can see her bright future. But she cannot. She cannot see her future. Instead, she's stuck into this space of fear. And so what's the best thing I can do for her, because I love her, is that I can reach out to her, I can communicate with her, I can tell her how amazing she is, that she is allowed to look at the wider horizon of what's possible for her, that there is a solution. There's always a solution. So to support one another in this way, and to be able to receive the feedback if someone tells you something that might be a little bit more challenging to accept. And you, as the person who is giving the feedback, to soften your tone. Soften your tone. Don't show up to the table all riled up with righteousness about how you can change them or help them or tell them what to do, or worse. I told you. I already told you how this would end up. I already told you that this was a bad decision. This is not communication. This is blame. So do you see how important it is for us to work on us if we're going to navigate any of these difficult conversations? To soften our hearts, and also if you're here with me and you're listening to this, and if any of this resonates with you, you know, there's really a huge benefit to practicing these skills and techniques, because overall you become more grounded, you become calmer, you regulate your nervous system with more efficacy. And do you know that a regulated nervous system drops into your stress levels, that it can help you with your cholesterol, that your blood pressure can be better managed if you can regulate your nervous system? The benefits are endless. Is it work? Yeah, it's a lot of work. But I would much rather live my life in a state where I'm comfortable with myself. I practice this beautiful skill of being honest from a mindful and skillful place, from a soft heart, from a heart of compassion, without letting other people step all over me. You see, there's a lot of steps. It's a complex world, how to navigate conversation, how to mindfully navigate conversation with difficult people, and then also to know the line when you step off. But it's so important to not step off angrily, like to not say, you know what, the heck with them. They don't get it. They're not going to get it. To heck with them. Like kind of like washing your hands of it. There's a more loving way to do that. You know, you could just say, I'm so sorry that I can't help and that they can't hear. And I'm just going to take some space right now. You see the difference? To not wash your hands of people like, they're horrible, they're this, they're that. Yeah, some people aren't very nice. But when we have that feeling about other people, the feeling lives in us and in our lives, also in other areas. And it's very interesting because we don't know, it's insidious. But if you have resentment, if you have betrayal in your body, if you feel like you are being betrayed by someone, or you're holding on to resentment in your body, it shows up in different areas of your lives. That's why if you think you're better than somebody else, look again. Not to minimize yourself, not to blame yourself, but there's a place there. It's like a little bit of a spot between a rock and a hard place, that if you think you're better than someone else, just take a step back, so that your ego doesn't get the best of you, and so that you can start trashing people because they're horrible people. I'm not saying they're not horrible people. I am saying that there is a place where we can leverage ourselves and not get caught up with the story around them being horrible people. So we need to clean up our backyards, essentially. If you want to have a better quality of person in your life, if you want to surround yourself with better quality people, then go find them. Oh my God, there are a lot of really amazing people in this world. And model how you want to be and navigate in the world by those other people. Don't try to change them. Don't try to change anyone. Don't go out there being better than anyone else. Be kinder, be gentler, be softer, have a bigger heart, and see how you might be able to contribute to a more positive future, potentially for them, but without having to input what you think is right. Hey, let's deal with ourselves. Let's go back and check in with ourselves. Okay, that was a minute. Oh my God. All right, guys, any comments, questions, insights? Give me some feedback about what I'm sharing with you. Does it make sense? If you disagree, you disagree. That's okay. That's why we're here. I want to build the conversation around what I'm sharing with you. Give me a little bit of feedback about what you're hearing, or maybe you're dealing with a difficult situation. How might you want to approach, embrace, move forward? Give me a little bit of feedback about what you're hearing. Is this helpful? And if it is helpful, how is it helpful? Is there anything that I shared with you today that you might be able to integrate in your life? Are you in a situation where you are having a difficult time with someone? Is there a place in your life where you have to navigate a difficult conversation? And if so, was there anything that I shared with you today that might be helpful? So helpful. Okay, so I think this is you, Sabi. So helpful, and why I've always loved going to you. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Tell me more about how it's helpful, the specifics. How is it helpful? It helps to hear communicate from a place that is gentler, even if the person in front of me is not gentle. Yeah, I feel that. I have to remind it often to myself when I communicate with my dad, who doesn't have the tools for the moment. Yes. So thank you for that comment. Also remember, don't start to take all types of responsibility for how the other person responds. You know what I mean? It's not your business how other people respond. What's your business is how you respond. So if someone is not able to communicate on the level that you can communicate, you want to mirror a little bit, right? To soften, to slow down. You don't have to agree. You don't have to fuel the conversation. And a lot of the times what we can do is kind of gently exit out instead of moving into more of a difficult conversation. Yeah, people in front of us, especially in difficult conversations, are not always pleasant. They're not there to support you. Just remember, okay, I want to go back to the beginning because we're almost done. Just remember, start with being honest. Start with being honest with yourself. Start by taking a step back. Put yourself behind the other person's eyes. Know that the other person is in pain. We don't have difficult conversations when we're not in pain. Chelsea says, it's helpful, but I honestly feel stuck. I'm going to focus on myself and growing myself rather than investing all my time and energy on someone else. Yes. So, Chelsea, thank you for writing that. And I wanted to say one more thing about being stuck. The stuckness will not last forever. You won't be stuck forever, Chelsea, or any of you who might feel stuck. And I know, because believe me, I have felt stuck also. You will move through the stuckness, but the stuckness is oftentimes a very rich and fertile ground from which to grow. If you're stuck, it's because there's a part in you that you have still not figured out. There's something about this someone else, this relationship, that you are still trying to figure out what the best thing to do for yourself is. That's why the stuckness comes, because if you were clear about how to handle it, it would be easy. You would move through it. But stuckness is a sort of gift. It's a sign. If you're stuck, you just have to pause for a moment. And then this conversation, another conversation, something else, you'll have a conversation with someone else at some point, and maybe some of this will show up in that conversation, and you'll be like, oh my God, I get it now. And then a little piece of the stuckness gets unstuck. Does that make sense? So please be patient, especially if you're feeling stuck. Please be patient. Trust your life and focus, as you said, Chelsea, focus on you. Focus on what makes you happy. Focus on going in the direction that you want to go in. Focus on slowing down. Focus on listening to your body. Listen to your heart. And the stuckness will start to move. I promise. The stuckness will start to move. It's just what happens in life. Stuckness is part of the process to growth. So don't be discouraged, okay? Do not be discouraged. You will move through it. The stuckness will move. Just pay attention and put yourself first in terms of growing yourself, okay? Yes, it's continuously happening in our circle. Oh, yay. Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks, Chelsea. And finally, I don't know how to communicate it more specifically, but I'll think about why. Okay. Good answer. Thank you so much for being here. Sabine, Vanessa, Chelsea, Gerald, Christiane, thank you for being here. I hope this was helpful. You can always, of course, email me personally. You can leave a message on my Facebook group. And if you know anyone who could benefit from our sacred circles, from these types of conversations, invite them to join the group. Let's grow our group organically with people who are interested in this type of thing and who want to leverage and improve the quality of their lives. They want to improve the quality of their heart. They want to deepen, have better, more loving, sustainable, growing relationships. Thank you, everyone. I love you all. And I'm going to go back to teaching now. I'm going to go spend a few more days with these amazing people teaching. I hold you in my heart, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.